Hi everyone, welcome to the Hollywood Makers. Today's guest is a producer who has worked across Hollywood major studio and independent films, and who brings a really clear, grounded approach to producing. She's a former executive at Universal, Disney, and Orion. Most recently, she is a founder of La Monte Productions. Her recent work is part of the current Oscar conversation. Viva Verdi recently shortlisted for this year's Oscars Best Original Song. Take us inside Casa Verde in Milan, the historical home for retired opera singers and the young musicians they mentor. She's also behind Weiwei's Turandot, which allows Weiwei as he makes his operatic directing debut at Rome Opera House. Today we are talking about the craft of producing, how decisions get made, how projects take shape, and what it really means to guide a film from idea to screen. Hi Christine, welcome to the podcast. I am so happy to have you here and share your journey with us. So my first question is, during your time in studio corporate environments like Universal and Disney, what was the single most important skills that experience refined you in? Like, how does that skill support the work you do today as an independent producer?
Thank you, Starry. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I think one of the things is to be prepared, do research, and have an opinion. Very important. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. At the studio, you just have to have one and you have to be able to back it up. So in order to do that, you have to be up to speed on whether it's the subject of the film, the industry, where it's headed, the trends that are happening. So being well read, I think, is essential, and not being afraid to talk about your what your opinion is said, as long as you can back it up. It's really important to have backup when you do that. And I think it's important too. And I think when you don't know an answer, is not make one up. Just to be silent and just say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. So I think those things are important.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I started my documentary journey with CNN at the beginning of my career, and I work on true crime documentaries. We did a lot of research before we dive into one case. So what you said, that makes so much sense. You can really hear how that, through lines carries across everything you do.
Exactly. Right. In life in general, I think it's true, right? Just to be able to back up your opinion, to have one, and to be well read, and to be able to express yourself. I think it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with documentaries, I feel like we are the people who raise the awareness to the public that
Exactly.
Things that the public didn't realize.
That's right. Like Casa Verde, they are fact-based. And fact-based, you need to have correct information and do your research. And I know that's really such a big part of it. And I think it brings a richness to a film, to a documentary, when you can, whether it's, whether it's in graphics, however you want to present it. I think it's to have that background and to be able to give an audience a good springboard to work from on whatever the subject matter is a richness that you can offer an audience. I think it's important.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So moving from the studio boardroom to independent films and theater productions, what was the most challenging identity shift you had to make?
Well, I think at a studio, there's funding, there's money, and there's huge staff. And so you can know what to do, which is great. You come up with a strategy, and then you have a little army of people that you work with, including yourself, that's part of this army that's going to put everything into action. And it's fast, it's fabulous. In an independent production, you know what to do, but there's only a few people to do it. So you have to depend on other resources, I have a lot of interns that I work with, emerging filmmakers that I'm happy to have on board because I love teaching, I love bringing people along. So, but I think that's part of it, is that it's a little frustrating when you know strategically what to do for a film, whether it's in production, post-production, and you might not have the resources or the funding to do that. So you have to be a little more creative about doing that. It's always that way with, with a lower budget film. It's always that way. And sometimes it works out because in that thinking of being a little bit more creative and thinking out of the box because you don't have the resources, other ideas come up that you would not have thought about if you had had the budget to do something. And I like that. I like that idea of being able to stretch your imagination and being creative, of making things happen that are a little bit unique and different.
Yeah, that transaction you are describing, I feel it feels incredibly real because I also work on some independent films and I can see how executive producers they were kind of like also being challenging about the funding part because they don't have the you need to fund the films and yeah and you need like one producer they have to do everything.
It's true.
Like everyone holds many hats on.
Exactly. But I think that's true these days anyway. I think being a multi-hyphenate is essential these days. You have to be able to bring more to the table than just one skill. And I think that's a good challenge. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. And I like that young emerging filmmakers can produce, can direct, can write. And if they have to sweep the floor, that's okay. And I think that makes for a little bit more quality across the board too, that people will just chip in to make whatever has to be done to make it right and to move forward, to make things move forward. That's always the most important thing. When you don't, it's always for documentaries, you're always trying to raise funds. It's very, very unusual when you're commissioned and say, here's $1 million, go make a film. But obviously, if you're with a studio or have a production company that's backing you, but otherwise, it's you work, you raise the funds, you go back, you do a little bit more, do another production shoot. That's what we did with Viva Verdi. We went back 3 times, but it took us 13 years because, first of all, we wanted to get an arc of the residents that were at Casa Verdi, the home that Verdi built for retired opera singers, and these amazing stories of these masters, these maestros that live there and still continue to create, to jam, to be creative. And what a wonderful thing that is, to be creative at any age is really what keeps you young and keeps you vibrant. And I also think having the international students that they teach, this intergenerational exchange, offers a whole other layer of activities and excitement and a reason to get up in the morning is what we all need.
Yeah, I agree with that because originally from China and I come all the way to the United States and I went to
Mm.
Chapman and study here and after I graduated I just continue working here and I feel like the international part you are mentioning it really resonate with me because I always feel like it's really an eye-opening experience and
Mm.
you can consume all different kind of perspective into yourself and then you can kind of like reproduct.
Yes, I understand. That's true. It's very true. Um, Having an imagination helps. Being fearless and going into territories that you normally wouldn't go into because it could be a way to solve a problem or a way to get funding or there's many reasons to try the unknown. And in independent production, you do that often. You're more apt to try things differently in a different way. And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it gives us more creativity.
That's right. We have to test our metal. What are we made of? How our thinking? Is it sound? Is it creative? Does it work? I think
Mhm.
that's good.
Yeah, I agree with that. So when you are, deciding whether to move forward on a project, what is your personal green light standards? Like how do you know a story is worth committing years of your life to?
Well, it's really interesting because with both films that I've been involved with recently, both films are on the Academy portal right now, and Weiwei's Turandot, it's Weiwei directing Turandot at the Rome Opera House. I love opera. I grew up with opera. So that's a part of my life that resonates for me. The performing arts have always been important to me. I've always been involved in them. So when I'm looking at projects, if something resonates for me and feels good, and I know that I'm going to have to live with this energy in the subject matter. So I normally do not do horror films, things like that. But being involved with opera like Verdi and Puccini for me has been so joyful. It really enriches my life. And it's a pleasure to work on a project that is so beautiful. I mean, working with Weiwei and his vision for a modern interpretation of Turandot that speaks to our world today. That's something that I believe in. And I also feel myself as an activist. So when he said this is an opera for peace, I think all of us, Maxime Derevenko, the director, and Marta Zaccarone, my Italian producing partner, and then I brought in Andy Cohen, who brought in Julian Lennon as an EP, and then Marcy Collier as an EP, my friend. We're all activists and all believe that these films can be world changing, could really change the way people look at things and understand things and question their own way of looking and thinking about things. I think that's a positive thing. I think it's important. So I'm very happy to be involved, especially with opera, because I love it. I worked with Franco Zeffirelli, when I was at Universal on La Traviata. So the Verdi connection and karma that I've had been there for a long time. And I grew up with my grandmother making sauce, and she would be listening to Mario Lanza singing these great arias of Verdi and Puccini. So that's kind of been in my blood. And I come from Italian heritage, which is, opera. It's one of the great traditions and one of the great arts for us. So I was thrilled to be offered both these positions as a lead producer on both these films, and it's been rewarding and fulfilling and joyful and delicious too, because I've worked in Italy on both films, so that's another thing too. And my third documentary, Children of the River, is also an Italian documentary about Parma and the River Po, the longest river in Italy, and some of the people who live along there. So I guess things that resonate for me, Italy, definitely. I have my Italian citizenship. As I said, I grew up with Italians, and there were a lot of us. And living in Italy on and off for many years has been a joy. It's what I really enjoy there, or the south of France or Greece. Those are in Portugal. I guess I love international travel, actually. So I love being in Japan and China and other places. So that international flavor is one thing that I am very attracted to. So that's been great. Like Orpheus is my favorite movie of all times. You know it? It takes place in Brazil. It's Portuguese, and it's about the myth of Orfeo and Eurydice, set to carnival time in 1950s. It won an Academy Award for Best International Film in 1960.
Oh, I see.
That's a beautiful film. Yeah.
Well, I really love, how clearly you articulate that. It feels very instinctual, but also very earned, So I'm also curious, like in your experience, what is the most critical bridge that allows a documentary to move from being meaningful to actually being seen?
I think that it's important to have a strategic marketing campaign and to understand from the beginning how to get off the entertainment pages, because that's one thing, is to be entertaining. And documentaries, to me, films should entertain, educate, and inspire. That's what I feel they should do. So I think you try to get a campaign from the very beginning that's solid and that understands the niche audiences that your subject or your film appeals to, and you try to make it as real for those audiences as possible, with interesting articles, with factual things that you can update. So for instance, when Verdi has his 5th anniversary, we celebrated that, and were able to let people know that in the home, Casa Verdi, there was a great celebration of the great Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi. So there's articles and ways to get your message out there, to make it real and to make it appealing and attractive and compelling for an audience. I think that's, and then there are the messages that go along often and sometimes not. But for us, we started out saying this is such a beautiful legacy home that Verdi made. It's really should be a blueprint for other retirement homes. So that's a meaningful thing to present to an audience, to the public. So you make it as concrete as possible. So you show music therapy and how a younger audience, a younger music students come and are part of the daily life, and how that music therapy staves off Alzheimer's and other disease and creates a happy environment, a lively, active environment for homes.
Yeah, I feel that's such an, it's such an important distinction, and I don't think people talk about that gap nearly enough. In documentary filmmaking, how do you balance a director's creative freedom, and also the ethical responsibilities to the subject, and narrative structure that remains accessible to audience?
Well, I think the being ethical is number one. And I think, these subjects, in our case, there was a residence at Casa Verdi for Viva Verdi, and they give you build a trust with them, and you don't want to betray that. And so it's important to continue that line of trust throughout the film. So you let them know what you're doing and they're a part of it. You show them little clips when you're going along sometimes. And so I think that's an important part of that. And delivering that to an audience should be part and parcel of what you're doing. So there's many things when you start a film. It's what you think should be in a film, and then what you capture on film, and then how you craft it to be told to the public. So you're combining all those things, and hopefully that the ethical part of it is also part of the fabric of the film. I think that's how I can answer that.
I really love the word you use, fabric, because I feel like that balance you are describing is so delicate.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and you can really feel the intention behind it. What core question, like, or core emotional impulse, like initially drove each of these, two feature documentary you were working on? Like, what was the first log line that formed in your mind?
Well, it's interesting because I have a marketing background from the studios. I'm a very strict studio girl. So the first thing you do is you create a log line, and you don't change it unless at the very end the film is very different than your log line, and then you could change it for the public. But you try to maintain that log line. So with Casa Verde, it was an intimate look into the lives of the people, these residents who live at this home that Giuseppe Verdi built in 1896 for his fellow artists. So that's our core, and that's a springboard. And that springboard is what you use for the publicity, for the advertising, for all of the different departments. Use that. That's our vision. And then it goes from there. And then it grows into a synopsis of a little bit more. So these are the characters then. We developed the characters because we followed them 5 characters and their stories. And it was a diverse story because we had a Japanese, Chitose Matsumoto, and her wonderful story of coming to Italy because she couldn't sing Italian opera in Japan. They could only sing German opera and German songs. So you just continue to unroll those things, and we had an embarrassment of riches with all these great stories that we were being told. They were exciting and interesting. But when you start with some people that are 91, the second time we went back for production shoot, some of them were already in the top floor, which is a little bit more care, Alzheimer's care, or a little bit more care. So you have to kind of pivot a little bit. And so we chose the 5 that we thought had great stories that were a little different and unusual. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, you can, no, that completely answered my question. And I can really hear like how everything traced back to that initial impulse. Yeah. So as a producer, what were the most significant creative decision you made on each films? Like, not in terms of budget, but in terms of, like narrative focus and editorial choice.
Yeah, I think with Ai Weiwei's Turandot, one of the things that in producers, there's always a delicate balance between directors and producers. And I'm a creative producer, and I make no bones about that when I come on board. I'm on every part of the shoot, of the editing. So, and both my directors were very open and wonderful about that. And one of them for Ai Weiwei was I thought it was really important that Ai Weiwei's father was a part of this, and even just a little snippet of information about him because it informs us and informs Ai Weiwei's life. That's the reason why he is the way he is that his father, a great poet, was exiled, and Ai Weiwei was very young at the time, so he understood it was like to be to be an outsider. And so he had great compassion for those people that felt outside of. And also, there was nothing there. It was Siberia, and there was no music, there was no beauty. And so I think he has a great love for those things and a great appreciation for those things. That was one of them. And for Viva Verdi, I really loved the students and having a little bit more of the students working with the residents as they were teaching them, because there's great energy in that exchange, and there's great wisdom also and great appreciation from the students. So I love when Jambi is teaching them, and Massimiliano says, you can't get this in books, you could only get it here at Casa Verde with these great masters who are passing the torch to a younger generation.
Well, I mean, I always love to ask this question because I feel like those answers are always very inspiring me, because that kind of decision making is invisible to audience, but it completely shapes how the film lands. So between the volume of materials, structure, complexity, character relationships, what was the most difficult elements to shape into a finished film, and how did you resolve it?
Well, part of it is that the pandemic happened during both these films. Ai Weiwei actually shut down. They started, it was just a few days in, and then the Rome Opera House shut down, which is the first time it's ever done that in its 200-year history. So that was very traumatic. And what do you do? Do you continue? What happens? And 600 people were part of the production of the opera. What happens to those people? And do you continue to hope that it can come back? Just have to believe that there will be a next chapter to your film. So you continue to take what Maxime did is he took some footage and he created a reel and tried to raise some funds and tried to continue on. And then 2 years later, in 2022, when they resumed rehearsal, he was in there recording, and that was a positive thing. That's kind of when I came on board as a co-production with Italy. It was a U.S.-Italian co-production. So I think that was one of the things, is that you have to just be persistent and believe that it's going to continue and keep going forward as much as you can. The same way with Viva Verdi, we started to edit remotely. So Federico Rodelli was in Milan and that area. Yvonne, the director and my producing partner and co-writer on the film, was in New York, and I was in LA. So thank goodness for Zoom, because the three of us were able to Zoom. It's not the same as being in the same room together, which we've done often since then, but at least it gave us an opportunity to string together the select scenes and create our first string out, and which was based kind of on a paper cut that Yvonne and I did. That worked out. So those challenges, as I said, you have to be a little more creative. And so you find a way to do things.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because also with documentaries, sometimes when we are follow one character's stories, it also, take years. And what you have been describing, that sounds like one of, those moments where the film really reveals itself. So both films engage deeply with culture, heritage, but it's not like they both don't become nostalgic. So how did you avoid turning history into a static artifact and instead allow it to speak to the to the present?
Well, because the opera is over 100 years old, but the Weiwei has an incredible magical way, an artistic way of bringing it into the present. So he used projections, and the projections were the world, what was going on, war and famine and immigration and what was happening with the pandemic. So he was able to incorporate that, again, the fabric of that opera with more modern events that were going on to bring it into the world today. So that was the way that happened. And for Viva Verdi, I think that we had this home that was built in 1896, 98, and that opened in 1902 after Verdi died at his wish, because he felt he didn't want to have the spotlight on him. So he was very humble and humanitarian. So I think that is a living and breathing character in our film, the home. And we made it modern. We showed the way it looked when the first guests went in with archival. So you use archival to establish that. And then you show the current day with these modern young musicians being mentored by these masters that have been living there for, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, whatever, how copacetic it all is, and how they walk arm in arm talking about film and about music. Music is what they're obsessed with. Music is what they love and what they want to do all the time. So it's a nice thing to see that these generations can offer each other different food for thought, and also just being able to help each other every day, like even conversation.
Well, I love how you frame that, because, it keeps the work alive rather than sealed in the past.
That's
So
right.
in Ai Weiwei's Turandot, the artist, the work, and political reality are tightly intertwined. So as a producer, how did you decide which tensions needed to remain on screen and which required restraint?
Is as far as the footage that we had of his interviews. Is that what you mean? I think we just looked at all of it, and we supported a lot of what he said with either archival or with the opera. So he would say, today Caliph represents this. And then, we would go from the opera to real life to his philosophy and show him collaborating with the artist there and explaining his process. I think that intimate filming of getting his process down was really something special that Maxime had as a gift. And Maxime, actually, their lives kind of resonated because Maxime also came from a Russian home, a Russian father and Italian mother. His father was a Bolshoi ballet dancer who had to leave Russia because he was in love with an Italian woman. And at that time, people of that stature only married Russians. So he left. So I think Maxime really understood the idea of freedom of expression and of social justice. And he and Ai Weiwei really understood each other and had a simpatico. It was nice to see. And I think that's why Ai Weiwei allowed this intimacy that developed of following him on this path.
I mean, that the restraint you are describing feels like just as intentional as what's left in. So both films operate within highly international, like creative context, like we talked before.
Did you encounter moments that felt untranslatable, like culturally, linguistically, or emotionally? And how did you navigate them?
For Viva Verdi, I grew up in an Italian home, so I understood, and many of my relatives were from Italy, not just American Italians, but from Italy. So I understood the nuances of the body language and the language. I speak some Italian, so I understood a lot of that. But in truth, our two editors, Dariana Cardilli and our lead editor, Federico Conforti, they both are Italian from Italy. And so they really helped us in the editing process to put those pieces together and to get those little winks and to capture those Italian-centric ideas or physicalities of our guests that make the film international, make it more Italian in a way, because you can see when Anthony Loferoso, Leonello's talking about all these older people coming in. They're hitting a record, and he does this note that is still incredible at 91 or 92, and then he just shrugs his shoulders. It's a typical Italian gesture, like, oh, that's all I've got. What do you want from me? And it's such a beautiful thing.
Wow, I mean, that's such a fascinating way to put it. Like those moments often say the most, and even when they are hard to name. So I know the films enter the Oscar contenders, and it's shortlisted for the best original songs, and congratulations on
Oh,
that.
thank
And
you.
I would love you to talk more about that part.
Well, it's kind of like we are an independent production. We don't have a big studio behind us. We don't have distribution for Viva Verdi. And we were up against at least 68 other songs, three Netflix songs and films. So that we were one of the 15 is we're very proud of that. And Nick Pike, who wrote Street Dreams of Joy from our film, kind of had to go toe to toe with Verdi, I think, to create this beautiful soundtrack and this music, this score that would fit seamlessly into the film when we have so much Verdi music. And Verdi's music is so stunning. And I think Nick did an incredible job. We're both Academy members, and one of our Academy friends, Alan Rich, who's actually an executive producer on the film, introduced us and said to Nick, I think Christine might have a project that you would like. So Nick said, "Whoa, what do you have?" And I said, "Viva Verdi." And he said, "Why don't you send me something?" So I sent him a little reel, maybe 11 minutes. And in 2 days, he created this beautiful song. And that's the song that has been shortlisted for Best Original Song. We're very proud of it. It's beautiful. It's an aria that Anna Maria Martinez, the great mezzo-soprano, sings, and they have a soundtrack now, so you can buy it. It's a haunting, beautiful aria. It's in my head all the time. I think it's beautiful, stunning. Yeah, so we're very happy that we're at this place right now. So we'll see the week of January 12th to the 16th is when the music branch and the rest of the Academy vote on the short list to whittle it down to 5 nominees. And then we all vote. We're fingers are crossed that we'll be one of them.
That's great. Congratulations again on that one. And thank you so much for joining the Hollywood Makers today and, share your journey with us and our audience. And yeah.
Thank you, Starry. I so enjoyed speaking with you. And, fingers crossed for all of us.
Yeah. I'm sending all my best wish to you.
Thank you so much. I just want to mention that AARP had a wonderful screening a couple days ago. It was a holiday virtual screening of Viva Verdi, and there were over 9,000 registrants, and we were live on the chat, Nick and Yvonne and I, and there were so many great reactions and responses to the film and to the music. I'm hoping that they might do another one because the audience response was spectacular. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. That's great.
So thank you, Starry.
Yeah, of course. It's so nice to talk to you today.